Hello YouTube, welcome to my review of Batman issue 40, aka Batman Endgame Part 6. I'm going to start off, before I talk about the contents of the issue, by apologising for how late this video is. This book took ages to arrive. Then commenting on the cover. Now, I think this is a fantastic cover. It's based on some very traditional artwork of St. George attacking the dragon, with the dragon generally perceived as being a metaphor for the devil, but the dragon in this case being a very Joker-like dragon, because the main villain in the arc's the Joker. All in all, it's a very intriguing departure from any of the other stuff we've seen in the Endgame series, but it's showing a real triumph of good versus evil. He's about to plunge his sword into the Joker. And I feel that's misleading because of some of what happens in the issue. But as a cover on itself, if we weren't to look at the issue, it's absolutely amazing. It's triumphant, it's bold, it's very, very bright, and there's an X factor about this cover. I think in part it looks interesting because of how it's using the golden ratio somewhat, but it's still a very good cover and a very clever design. Especially I like the way that the Joker's tail, dragon tail, is wrapped around him, as in, you're coming down with me. Which is, again, not misleading. That was my bad earlier. And that's an interesting idea, I think, that they would do it like that. Because this issue has received a lot of controversy about one thing going on in it. And that thing is the reason that I haven't decided if I love this issue or hate this issue. Because it has some fantastically written scenes in it. And there's some really dark stuff where you've got the Joker to taunt Batman dancing for some weird reason on top of a giant T-Rex that was in Batman's Batcave with the corpse of Bruce Wayne's mother. That is some spectacularly dark stuff. Kind of ruined a little bit by the fact that Batman isn't actually Bruce Wayne, it's Dick Grayson. Sorry, spoilers. I'm going to try and keep this as non-spoiler filled as possible. There are some very good lines in this book which you're going to have to read yourself. I'm not going to read them because you need to read them. Because for the past quite a while of Endgame, it's not felt like a book with the Joker in it. The character that they've been using as the Joker, his backstory, the way he's acting, the way he's motivated, the way he's talking, he hasn't felt like the Joker. In this, not only does he feel like the Joker, he acts like the Joker. Look at that stabby, stabby, smiley face back. That's amazing. He's completely goes nuts, but he's going angry nuts. I mean, just look at some of this stuff. There's an interesting twist in this on The Dark Knight Returns, because in The Dark Knight Returns, the Joker dies with a batarang in his eye, and in this, Batman dies. Yes, he dies. I don't know why. Scott Snyder did this. Hate him for it. No, don't hate him for it. I'm sure they had their reasons. It probably wasn't his idea. It might have been his idea. Anyway, but look, we see Batman dies with that Joker card in his eye. And there's some really tragic scenes here. There's some really, really dark stuff that goes on, and there's all this stuff sort of with Batman saying he believes the Joker's origin, and then basically force the origin that the Joker is telling him about him being like 100-something-year-old guy who's been living on this Dionysium in his system. And there's this whole scene so much where the he's keeping the Joker there, forcing the Joker to die with him because he doesn't really believe the Joker's story. He's just telling the Joker he does, so that he gives the Joker this weird sense of satisfaction in the fact that he's duped a guy into thinking he can't die so that he'll die. It's a really weird way of doing it. But at the same time, I don't like the way the Joker goes out, because his last lines that we see are no, no, no. And that is not something that we would expect from the Joker. I mean, let's take all the other times the Joker has died. Sure, in Convergence issue 3, which, as you know if you watched my review, sucked. Convergence issue 3, he just kind of, sort of... Oh, that's 4. Yeah, I need to review that at some point. Where's 3? Whatever. He just kind of sort of got his neck snapped, but he was about to do something really sinister, and he was being badass and evil and Jokerish. When we can, because this is the New Earth version of the Joker, by the way, the same one who paralyzed Barbara Gordon, etc. But then I already explained that in my review of that issue, so I don't need to go on about it. But then if you compare this again with some of the better Joker deaths, compare this with the deaths of, well, let's look at Mark Hamill's Joker in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Sure, he didn't die, but he thought he was about to die, and the audience thought he died until the new Batman Adventures, and he was faced with what appeared to be certain death with Andrea, and how did he react? He laughed like crazy. And if you compare this again with the moment in The Dark Knight Rises, not The Dark Knight Rises, sorry, The Dark Knight, where he's falling off the building and then Batman saves him and sort of drags him up and they have a sort of angry conversation. He starts laughing then as well. And there's also the moment in Batman Assault on Arkham, where he's in the plane and it's sliding down, about to crash onto the floor. And he laughs. He laughs in the face of death throughout all this, because he feels life is meaningless anyway, and the universe is just a huge joke. He laughs in the face of death, but here he doesn't. He just says, no, no, no. And I find this weird, because throughout the whole previous part of the issue, he was acting very much like the Joker we all knew and loved / feared if it was real. But he doesn't here. He just doesn't seem like the Joker. He just takes his death with no, no, no. I mean, sure, he might have survived that, because if he does have the level of sort of Dionysium healing factor that we think that he says he does, it's always open for him to return. And I don't care what DC says. There is no way Batman won't in some way, shape or form be brought back from the dead in less than about 2 years. That's just going to happen. It is. But one thing which I found interesting was this Bin Man looks a lot like... Sorry if it's a bit bright. He looks a lot like Eric Border did. As in Joker pretending to be Eric Border at the start of this series. And some part of me wonders if that's actually intentional and it's hinting that he survived. But some of the actual last lines of Alfred talking about Batman realising what his outlook was and everything, it's so depressing. I mean, seriously, it's so freaking depressing. It's like, who reads a comic book to be depressed? Who watches a film to be depressed? Heck, I have seen depressing films. Admittedly, I've listened to somewhat depressing music. Sometimes it's good. But I don't like feeling depressed. I don't like watching a film and feeling depressed. I don't like reading a comic book and feeling depressed. I like reading a comic book for action, for excitement, for awesome superheroes. I mean, sure, tragedy is essential. Tragedy motivates characters, it motivates plot lines, it develops stories, it develops characters, it brings things ahead. And I suppose they felt they needed this to evolve. But this is a tragedy that is not going to last, even if they say it is. It isn't, because lots of people are going to start reading Batman comics, I think, after Batman vs. Superman comes out. And Are they going to keep reading them if they pick up a Batman comic and it's about Jim Gordon in a giant ladybird suit? No is the simple answer, unless it's superbly written. Which, if Scott Snyder stays on, I don't think it will be. Anyway, that's my view of Batman Endgame Part 6. My opinion of Batman Endgame all in all is that it was okay. It had good issues. It had bad issues. That's it. It was okay. It tried to be something epic. At times it succeeded. At times it really failed. It had really good issues. But the biggest disappointment about Endgame, in my opinion, is not that Batman and the Joker died. The biggest disappointment I have is that none of the plot lines in the Batman annual one of the tie-in books had some very interesting looking things that I thought, I was sure, Batman Annual 3, the Endgame tie-in, this one, it had a lot that I was sure was going to make it into Endgame, and just sadly didn't. It had this really creepy looking nurse character, who I was sure was being teased as a villain in a similar manner to how Avatar teased Azula towards the end of Series 1. But she never appeared again. She might appear after this arc, and she might be a creepy villain. I don't know. But that was just the vibe I got from the way she was drawn and that creepy expression. Tell me those eyes aren't piercing your soul. And there was one more thing that I disapproved of, and that was that Endgame completely sucked the colour out of the Joker. He's the opposite of Batman. He's supposed to be bright and colourful, and as a result, in the same way, terrifying. He's a clown, but he's also a psychopath. And Batman Annual Vol 3 teased the return of the purple suit, rather. But then the purple suit never returned in Endgame. And the purple suit is a trademark of the Joker. And it's the only outfit that many of us really think, yes, it's the purple suit. He is the Joker. Not to have the purple suit after teasing it, I thought was very disappointing. I know, it's just a nitpick, but I think this issue should have been explored more in the mainstream arc. I think James Tynion IV's writing thoroughly outshone Scott Snyder's, and if Scott Snyder is going to leave the Batman arc soon, he keeps saying he will and then not, but if he does, I seriously think DC should replace him with James Tynion IV, because James Tynion IV's writing is absolutely fantastic. That's that. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, or comment if you disagree with me, or if you agree with me, or if you have any recommendations for a read or review. I'll be back in a few minutes when I'll be reviewing Convergence Issue 4 or the Flash Speed Force Issue 1, depending on... I've got this one in my hand, so I may as well review this one now the moment I press this stop record button.